read travel books much. Not that I entirely lack interest in the cultural content of any particular country, but I do just find myself skipping straight to the food section. Frankly though, I prefer to get myself in the mood for a holiday by wallowing in cookery books. Though what happens mostly is that I read the food books instead of going on holiday. But that's the way I like it. I really believe that so often to travel culinarily is better than to arrive. Call me Scheherazade, but just the idea of this saffron-scented chicken pilaf makes me feel that I should be in turquoise gauze and jewelled slippers. There are a couple of chicken breasts here, which I've cut into chunks and marinated in yoghurt, lemon juice and ground cinnamon, and this gives it the most wonderful perfumed tenderness. I use basmati rice in this pilaf because I like anyway. It's wonderful fragrance, but here it's lit up with saffron and studded with nuts and these bits of chicken toasted until bronze. But it is saffron scented, so the keynote is saffron. These lovely burnt brick red strands. I'm going to add the saffron straight to the stock because this way you get all the goldenness and flavour permeating through the pilaf later. Taste is very hard to convey in words. For me, the best description of taste ever is in a Huxley novel, Time Must Have a Stop, when a young man drinks champagne for the first time and describes it as apple peeled with a steel knife. And sort of borrowing from that a bit, I think that saffron really has a sort of rusty egginess. It's got astringency, but it's got richness as well. I'm just going to leave that and get on with the rice itself. I want to put butter and oil, but mostly butter, just a tablespoonful really, to stir in the rice first, just let it melt. Because the point again is always balance, and you have lightness but also sumptuousness, and some oil. This doesn't make it sort of heavy, it just adds slight richness, and I want this. There's something about a pilaf anyway which is a feast. And I've got a litre of stock, so I need half that amount, so 500 grams of rice, basmati. The wonderful thing about basmati rice is it takes really 10-15 minutes to cook. Always my rice of choice. And just toss into the butter. Stir through just till it gets coated lightly and is glossy. So in with this wonderful golden liquid. Now on top of this, I want some lemon zest. Really finely grated so it almost dissolves into the rice. The juice of a whole lemon. It sounds like a lot, but it doesn't give sort of invasive sourness. It just balances that light floral fragrance of the rice and the richness of the nuts. This should be coming up for the boil. Oh, very streamlined. And a few cardamom pods, just 3 or 4 because they're quite strong and I don't want anything to overwhelm, but I want that smoky muskiness that cardamom brings, sort of instant exoticism. Just transferring it to a lower flame, lid on, and in 10 to 15 minutes the rice will be cooked, by which I mean it'll be tender but with a bit of bite and will have absorbed all that golden liquid. Now this pilaf doesn't just have chicken, it has wonderful mixture of toasted nuts. You can use whichever nuts you want. I've got cashews and pine nuts here because I love their fat waxiness. And some flaked almonds, and I'm sure that bought packets of flaked almonds are considered really disreputable and not the thing, but I love them here. While these nuts are toasting, I'm gonna just get the chicken out of its yoghurt and cinnamon marinade. These nuts are just how I want them, all burnt and bronzed, so I can dispense the them. Now I need to give the chicken the same treatment. But with the chicken, need a bit of oil. Gonna check the rice. Ah, perfect. It's absorbed all the liquid and it's just striped with strands of gold. Just chop a bit of parsley while the chicken's bronzing up. Right, we're just talking about an assembly job now, which I always like. Just wait till you see this. Every time I cook rice, when I cook it a lot, I am freshly amazed at how much it swells up. I mean, look at this mound. Always, as ever, you just use a fork for stirring rice so that the grains don't clump together. Just tumble over these nuggets. Most of the bronze nuts can go in now, I think. Still wonderful and warm. Beautiful. Just toss everything gently so it's mixed. Final few bits of these nuts, and then green hit of parsley and some slithered pistachios, not toasted in the pan because I want all that ludicrous greenness. And this is when this comes to life for me. A little touch of the Arabian Nights in sunny Shepherd's Bush. And how can that be a bad thing? I'm going to have to help myself now. I'm sorry, but I don't even know why I'm apologising. For me, a semifreddo is the platonic ideal of an ice cream. Its name just means semi-cold, which is that it's like ice cream without that hard bite, with the most fabulous texture, just satiny, smooth, densely melting and voluptuous. And this honey semifreddo, I tell you, makes me glory in every bee's existence. Before you start the semifreddo, you need to whisk 300 millilitres of double cream. But I have to say, they do sell it in cartons of 284, so I wouldn't worry about the missing 16 millilitres. It's a honey semifreddo, so I get my honey in. 100 mils, good runny honey. Look, beautiful. 1 egg. And 4 yolks. And I use these beautiful orange yolked Italian eggs, which means that the semifreddo will have sort of a deeper intensity. But don't worry if you use ordinary eggs and it's paler. It'll still taste lovely. And last one. Now this is a very straightforward contraption, a pan with a bit of water at the bottom and this bowl suspended over it so that I'm going to heat the honey and eggs without actually letting the water touch them, so they were not going to split or anything. I just want it to warm, not get so hot that we have scrambled eggs. I mean, of course you could use one of those handheld electric mixers, but I want nothing to rupture my serene mood. I happen to love a semi-freddo more, I think, than ordinary ice cream. I love that melting texture rather than that teeth-aching sharpness. But one of the fabulous things about it is that it's much easier to make than ice cream. There's 3 ingredients and some whisking. Unlike ice cream, you're not making a custard first and you're not churning it once it's freezing or taking it out of the deep freeze and mixing it up. Now this is just how I want it. Beautifully yellow and mousily aerated and voluptuously swelling. So it's just a question of taking it off the heat and folding it into the cream mixture. And that's really, really all there is to this. Beautiful. And fold in. Don't worry about this, just keep calm and gentle. There. Now this is frozen in a loaf tin, not like an ice cream, but more like, I suppose, like a terrine, and already lined with cling film. And there it is in all its beautiful, pale, honeyed creaminess. Right, this just needs to be covered with a bit more cling film and then put in the deep freeze for about 3 hours till it's ready to serve. But if it makes your life easier, you can leave it in the freezer for up to 2 days. And I love to eat this unmoulded, then sliced and drizzled with some more fabulous amber honey. And just to complete that resiny taste, sprinkle with some toasted pine nuts. As far as I'm concerned, where there's bread, there's life. I mean, look at all this. I turn my nose up at nothing, but I have a particular addiction for these Middle Eastern flatbreads. And what I love about them is that they're undoughily chewy, but turn moorishly crisp when you toast or grill them. And they make wonderful kind of edible envelopes for my Moroccan roast lamb, or form a near instant base for a kind of Eastern Mediterranean take on pizza. I mean, not that I want to be dizzyingly eclectic in the kitchen, but I think it is impossible to cook, if you like eating, without borrowing a bit from here, a bit from there. And these flatbread pizzas are a vaguely Eastern Mediterranean take on, you've guessed it, an Italian idea. And the base is a bought flatbread. I mean, these are styled Mediterranean wraps, but obviously I'm not going to use them as wraps. And this is a tomato, mint and halloumi pizza. I'm just going to get the seeds out of the tomato because I don't want it too wet and pulpy on that thin base. Oh, these are lovely and fresh. Just chop fairly finely. And just smooth these now pulpy tomatoes over the flatbread. And on top of the tomatoes, something I love so much, some halloumi, which is intensely salty Cypriot hard sheep's cheese. Again, chop this very finely, or you can crumble it with your fingers. This won't melt and go into that sort of stringy goo that mozzarella does, but it does sort of meld into the tomatoes and soften. And the saltiness of the cheese against the sweetness of the tomatoes is wonderful. So just sprinkle the halloumi on top. Bit of dried mint. Now, an Egyptian friend of mine introduced me to the joys of dried mint. just has a depth and sweetness that is lovely, and when this is cooked I want just to blanket it with some freshly chopped mint, and it's as if the freshness of that mint really complements this dried muskiness underneath. Aha, bit of olio, not too much. Just drop it on the barbecue. It won't take very long. You just want that thin base to crispen a little bit more and the cheese just soften a little in the heat. As you can imagine, these flatbread pizzas lend themselves to pretty well any kind of elaboration or topping you want. And this is a chili and coriander pizza with some ground coriander. Lovely, sort of intensely, deeply grassy. And pour in a bit of oil, and just as the mint, halloumi and tomato pizza is sort of partnered by some fresh mint at the end, so this has to have a really lovely leafy covering of fresh coriander once it comes off the barbecue. It works so well pairing the sort of scorched, nutty spiciness of the ground dried herb with the final smattering of the fresh. These aren't thick, wodgy pizzas. I mean, there's something a bit poppadom-like almost about their base. Okay, so on with this. And finally, something I really love, such an easy thing to do, a za'atar flatbread. Now, za'atar is a bought Middle Eastern spice blend. It's a mixture of wild thyme, sesame seeds and ground sumac. All I'm going to do, so you can see how easy it is mix that with a bit of oil, a bit of brushwork I'm in the mood for. Let's brush this on. And this can join the other two on the barbecue now. There you go. And it's really just a question of cooking until that thin base is even crisper and everything is beginning to ooze in and melt slightly, and they're best eaten, I think, just cut into spindly wedges with, I don't know, a drink before dinner or lunch. I'm going to put this on just for a minute just to speed up the process because I'm too impatient, and start chopping my herbs to go over the pizzas when they come off the barbecue. I have to say, I call this Moroccan roast lamb, but I don't think this is how Moroccans cook lamb, but it's how I cook it when I want to bring Morocco to me. It is just a leg of lamb here, which is transformed so far from your idea of a normal Sunday roast by my magic ingredient, the most wonderful Moroccan spice blend, Ras El Hanout, containing just about every exotic spice you can imagine, and flecked with rose petals. Oh, so beautiful. I had to read this to see exactly what's in it because there's so much. Galangal, the rosebuds, ginger, cardamom, cayenne, allspice, lavender, cinnamon, and about twice as many as that, including absolutely some Nigella seeds. And I need to mix some lemon juice, some minced garlic, olive oil, and some freshly chopped coriander just for another hit of pungency. And then what I'm going to do, and I love this bit, is stab the lamb with the end of a sharp knife and push the spice mixture into the holes, smear it over the top, chuck it in a plastic bag and leave it to marinate for an hour or so. I've taken the lamb out of its bag and look, you can see it's still beautifully covered with its marinade. I've preheated the oven to gas mark 6, that's 200 degrees centigrade, and I'm going to give it an hour and a half, by which time it'll be aromatically blackened on the outside, and I do mean charred, but still juicily pink and tender within. I'm travelling eastwards from Morocco for the accompaniment to go with the lamb. This is from Turkey, it's called cacik, and it's really just a variant of the salads they have all along the Eastern Mediterranean of mint, yoghurt, cucumber and garlic. The lamb is about to come out of the oven, so it's a perfect time to make the cacik. I did peel and chop this cucumber, and this couldn't be simpler. It's just a question of mixing all the ingredients together. So after the cucumber, some wonderful Greek yogurt. And what I love about this is the contrast between the smooth coolness of the yogurt and the heady scentedness of the spiced lamb. Oh, and I love it as well, stuffed into warmed pita breads for a sort of different kind of cucumber sandwich. A garlic clove is what I need. More if you want this really hot. Just grate it in, mince it in. Some dried mint, just a sprinkling. And some lovely crunchy salt. And of course, some freshly chopped mint from the garden. Stir it together. What I want to do now is drizzle with a lovely green ribbon of olive oil. Beautiful. And a final sprinkling of mint. Perfect.
Yes, of course, there will be ones that you don't know.
You're not really ice creamy person, but there's something about that I didn't.
Oh, yes.
Things in miniature are always very important.
But actually,
Just
curious.
transfer it.
Much less than you think.
Not Francis Ford Coppola style.